In 2005, Ronaldinho won the Ballon d'Or, being named the best football player in the world. But just 15 years later, he was left with $5 in his bank account and was sent to a Paraguayan prison. But that's not all, because from the very start, his life was filled with the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. So, how did one of football's greatest ever players go broke and become a criminal? This is the full story of Ronaldinho.
Las opciones, Ronaldinho que se va solo, Ronaldinho, ¡gol!
El talonamiento, Ronaldinho buscando el gol del Barça, ha marcado el FC Barcelona, ha marcado Ronaldinho.
Former Brazilian football star Ronaldinho and his brother are being detained in Paraguay.
On the 21st of March 1980, Ronaldo de Assis Moreira was born, who was later given the nickname Ronaldinho. His family was extremely poor, living in a Brazilian neighborhood that was known for being one of the poorest and roughest areas in the entire country. His father was an ex-pro player who now worked in a shipyard, and his mother was a full-time nurse, which, as you can imagine, didn't bring in much money for the family. But despite this rough start, the family was given hope before Ronaldinho even grew up, because he had a brother named Roberto who was 10 years older than him and was a talented footballer playing for Grêmio. When Ronaldinho was 8 years old, his brother signed a pro contract that saw him earn enough money to support the entire family, and as a part of this contract, he was given a nice house with a pool to live in. But right as life started to look hopeful for the family, things would change quickly. One day when he was still only 8 years old, Ronaldinho returned home to find his family all in tears. His father suffered a heart attack, fell into the pool, and drowned. This was devastating for the family, and things would only go from bad to worse, because Roberto would soon suffer a devastating knee injury, meaning his pro career was in serious doubt, and the family's chance at a better life was slipping away. Without a dad, Roberto filled in as the father figure for young Ronaldinho and decided to take him under his wing. He trained him day and night to become a better football player, as he saw his little brother had the talent and the potential to be even better than himself. This dynamic between the two brothers was a constant throughout their lives, where Roberto took charge and Ronaldinho would follow blindly, and this is what eventually landed the two brothers in a Paraguayan prison cell, but we'll get to that soon. At 13 years old, playing in the Grêmio Academy, Ronaldinho really announced himself to the country by being part of a 23-0 victory, where he scored all 23 goals. This saw him get called up to the U17 World Cup, which he went on to win, becoming the next Brazilian wonder kid overnight. He kept rising the ranks at the Grêmio Academy, as he was so clearly a cut above the rest, and when he turned 18, he was finally handed his first professional contract. Ronaldinho spent 3 years at Grêmio, where he got better season after season. He made his debut at 18 years old in 1998, where he played a total of 38 games and picked up 6 goals for the year. In his second season, he played 47 matches and scored 22 goals. And then, in his third and final year with Grêmio, he scored 28 goals in 37 matches. But just goals alone don't represent fully the talent this kid had. Throughout his career, Ronaldinho was simply a joy to watch. He played football with a smile on his face and went out onto the pitch to entertain. During his time at Grêmio, one key moment stands out where he embarrassed the Brazilian legend Dunga with not one, but 2 ridiculous skills in the same match. But this embarrassment would come back to bite Ronaldinho, because a bit over a decade later, Dunga would become the national team coach, and he wouldn't forget this day. But anyway, with the talent he was showing in Brazil, it was obvious that the European clubs would come knocking for his signature. So in 2001, at 21 years old, Ronaldinho made the move across the world and signed for the French club PSG. Now, this wasn't the oil money PSG we know today. They weren't a strong club at the time, which is why Ronaldinho almost signed for Arsenal, but a failed work permit saw him opt for Paris instead. This move was engineered by his brother, who was now Ronaldinho's agent, and took care of anything important in his life. Ronaldinho started started off the season in Paris as a squad player and took some time to settle into the first team, but after the winter break, he came back and scored 4 goals in 4 consecutive matches, landing him a guaranteed starting position. He had a strong first season where he would perform especially well in the big games, but despite his strong start, there was a lot of controversy surrounding the Brazilian wonder kid because the PSG manager claimed that Ronaldinho was too focused on Parisian nightlife rather than football. He loved to party and enjoy life to the fullest, and this would play a part in his eventual downfall. But in the summer of that year, he got the call up to the Brazilian national team to play in the 2002 World Cup, where he was going to announce himself as a superstar. You see, Brazil had a front three that just couldn't be matched. They were called the 3 R's for Ronaldinho, Rivaldo, and Ronaldo Nazario. This attacking trio blitzed the tournament and won the final against Germany. Ronaldinho pitched in with 2 goals, 5 assists, and 1 beautiful free kick against England. Ronaldinho became a world champion at 22 years old and was now a football superstar. So when he returned to Paris, he was handed the number 10 for the 02-03 season, and the same story continued. He showed up in big games with big moments, but wasn't fully focused on football. He finished his second season in Paris with 12 goals in 37 matches, and he dazzled the world with his dribbling ability this year. But this PSG team just wasn't good enough because despite Ronaldinho's superstar status, Paris only managed to finish 11th in the league, which wasn't going to do it for Ronaldinho. So in the summer of 2003, it was time for a change. There were 2 clubs fighting it out for his signature, Man United and Barcelona. But with a bid of 30 million euros, the 23-year-old signed for Barcelona, where he was about to enter the best years of his career. In 2003, Barcelona weren't in a good place, but Ronaldinho can be seen as the catalyst who brought them back to the top of Spanish and European football. Xavi Hernandez says that Ronaldinho started the rise of Barcelona. He was handed the iconic number 10 jersey and scored on his debut. When Ronaldinho arrived at Barcelona, something seemingly changed within him. There were fewer and fewer stories of partying and drinking. It seemed like he was locked in and focused, and this was seriously reflected in his performances on the pitch, because in his first season, he scored 22 goals in 45 games, helping Barcelona to finish second in the league, but more notably, he was instrumental in their victory over Real Madrid that season, which was very significant as Barcelona hadn't beaten them in over 7 years. Something was brewing in the air at Barcelona, and they were ready to conquer football. In his second season at Barcelona, they blitzed the league, winning it for the first time in over 7 years. Ronaldinho was named the FIFA Player of the Year, and things just got even better from there, because in the 05-06 season, Ronaldinho won his second La Liga in a row and his second FIFA Player of the Year award in a row, but he also won the Champions League and the Balon d'Or, meaning he was quite clearly the best player in the world of football. He had his career best tally of 26 goals in a season, but again, just measuring him on goals would be a disservice to him because he was mesmerizing to watch. He was a world-class creator, feeding Samuel Eto'o all season, but even more than that, nobody could dribble quite like him. He had that Brazilian flair like never seen before. This season also saw Barcelona defeat Real Madrid 3-0, where he picked up 2 of those goals, but what made this day so special was that the Real Madrid fans got up and applauded Ronaldinho, which is only the second time in history that the Real Madrid fans applauded for a Barcelona player. The only other time was for Diego Maradona, and that just shows the magic Ronaldinho had. In the following summer, there was the 2006 World Cup to play, 4 years on from Brazil's victory over Germany, and now Ronaldinho was even better than he was back then, and seemingly so was Brazil. Kaká, Adriano, Ronaldo, and Ronaldinho made the most fearsome front 4 in world football, but things didn't go as well as they did last time. This Brazil team was unbalanced, top-heavy, meaning they underperformed and saw an early exit in the quarterfinals against France. The Brazilian fans were distraught at such an early exit, but things got a lot worse very soon because right after the loss, Ronaldinho and Adriano threw a party which really rubbed the Brazilians the wrong way. They ended up tearing down a statue of Ronaldinho, and a lot of love was lost for the legend. This was also strange as everyone thought Ronaldinho had put his party days behind him to lock in and focus on football, but sadly, it seemed like after winning everything there was to win in football, Ronaldinho lost focus, and this was seen upon his return to Barcelona too. In the 06-07 season, there was nothing really to write home about for Ronaldinho. His performances dropped for the most part, but don't get me wrong, he was still a wizard with the ball. But now the attention in Spain was being put on a younger talent by the name of Lionel Messi. Going into the 07-08 season, things got worse for the now 27-year-old Brazilian because this year was plagued with injuries. Not to mention his poor habits of partying and lack of fitness were all taking a toll on his performances, and it was looking like his prime years were now behind him. At this time, Pep Guardiola arrived at Barcelona and saw Messi as his golden boy. He thought Ronaldinho was going to be a bad influence on the young superstar, so he wanted to get rid of him. Ronaldinho now had the reputation of being a part-time footballer and full-time party boy, which was reminiscent of his younger years in Paris. So, at 28 years old, Ronaldinho was shipped off to the Serie A to sign for AC Milan, where things would just keep getting worse for him. Ronaldinho landed in Milan for the 08-09 season after he rejected the option to move to Manchester City. He was handed the number 80 shirt because his iconic number 10 jersey was occupied by Clarence Seedorf. This was a Milan team that was just coming to the end of its golden generation, but still had a bit more gas in the tank, which was actually quite similar to Ronaldinho himself. He started strong in his first season, but then he struggled with fitness, and as the season progressed, he was often left on the bench. He was seen to have a lack of dedication and training due to his party lifestyle, which obviously continued to speed up his decline. His manager, Carlo Ancelotti, said that this decline was not surprising at all. His physical condition was always precarious, but his talent was never in question. Ronaldinho's second season in Milan did not start well at all, but he soon found his form, which was similar to his prime years in Barcelona. Many speculate his effort levels this season were all to try to secure a spot at the 2010 World Cup, and his performances really did warrant that spot. He was moved onto the left wing under the new coach and was on fire. He finished as the league's top assister and finally got the Italian press on his side, with headlines being printed stating Ronaldinho revives his golden years. He had surely done enough this season to get the call-up to the World Cup, but the call-up never came. The Brazilian manager saw Ronaldinho as surplus to the team, but what was interesting about this is the manager at the time was the Brazilian legend Dunga, whom Ronaldinho embarrassed all those years ago. Many believe that this was simply an act of revenge, but anyway, after this summer, Ronaldinho had no more reason to put effort in and reverted back to his partying ways, which caused AC Milan to ship him out of the club in the January transfer window of the 2010-11 season. Ronaldinho signed for Brazilian club Flamengo at 30 years old and made sure to put a party clause in his contract, which stated that he was allowed to party twice a week, regardless of training or matches. After just one season here, Flamengo stopped paying his wages and Ronaldinho canceled his contract at the club. He then moved to Atletico Mineiro just 4 days after leaving Flamengo, where he actually performed very well. He helped them to lift their first ever Copa Libertadores by going on an insane run in the competition and was even awarded the Bola de Oro, which is the award given to the best player in South America. In 2014, he then moved to Mexican club Querétaro, where he spent one season before returning back to Brazil to play for Fluminense in 2015. He signed an 18-month contract at Fluminense, but only lasted 2 months, where he made 9 appearances and really failed to impress, leading to great criticism from the fans and thus a contract termination. After this, he went to play futsal in India for a couple of years before finally announcing his official retirement in 2018. Now, I wish his story ended here. A great but short career at the top and a slow decline till retirement, but unfortunately, that's not how this story ends, because just 2 years after he retired, he got involved in some serious legal issues which got him sent to prison and left with $5 in his bank account. Now, before I tell you about the crimes of Ronaldinho, I need to ask for your help. I put a lot of effort into these videos to make them the best videos possible, and all I ask is that you subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate your support and thank you, but now it's time for the crimes of Ronaldinho. So, How did this happen? Well, as you recall, Roberto was in charge of everything going on in Ronaldinho's life. All Ronaldinho did was play football and party, whilst his big brother handled all their business endeavors, and he was hardly one who played by the rules. In 2019, they had already been fighting legal battles against environmental issues, but they kept getting away with it until they finally were fined for building a fishing platform illegally in a protected area. And when the brothers failed to pay these fines on time, they confiscated 57 of their properties along with their passports. Then, in March of 2020, Ronaldinho had to make a trip to Paraguay for a promotional event for his new book, but without a passport. His brother got resourceful. He sourced 2 fake passports and got on a plane to Paraguay. Now, maybe if this was you or me, this plan would have worked, but wherever Ronaldinho goes, the media follows, meaning as soon as he landed in Paraguay, he was spotted and arrested instantly. Ronaldinho had no idea what was going on because this was all Roberto's plan, and his lawyer even described him as an idiot. He said he was a child who never grew up, but this was no defense against using a fake passport. So the 2 brothers were sentenced to prison in Paraguay. During the investigation of Ronaldinho, they searched into his bank account to find he only had $5 to his name, and he was actually broke. Now, odds are he had money hidden away somewhere in some offshore accounts, but there's no confirmation of that, so he was legally broke. Ronaldinho and his brother spent a total of 32 days in prison, where he was said to have lost his smile. But at least he had a football in prison and actually took part in the Prison Cup, which was a futsal tournament between the inmates. His team obviously won the competition, but still was a rough month for him. On April 7th, he was let out of prison and allowed to live on house arrest, which he was then eventually released from and is now living life as a free man. Wow, what a roller coaster of a story. What a beautiful football player. It's just a shame that he couldn't maintain his peak years at Barcelona for longer, but as they say, a candle that burns twice as bright lasts half as long. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I've got an even better one on screen now, so you should really watch it.